Thank you, Eric. It's so much fun seeing you in your living room. I look forward to the day we can be together in Unity Hall again, but it is kind of enjoyable to see everybody in their own personal spaces. So, we're continuing on in our series on our 12 powers, but before we get to today, I wanted to share with you a spiritual practice. So, last week we talked about the spiritual practice of love, wisdom. And those are the unifying dyad, love, wisdom. And I always invite you, share with me, how are you practicing these ideas in your life? And so thank you, Kathy Ginter, because Kathy Ginter sent me an email this week to share with me some of the ways she has been practicing and following the love and wisdom that is guiding her on what to think, say, and do during this time. So here's what Kathy has to say. She says, I was feeling a bit badly because I can't sew masks, and so masks are out of the question. But then I realized that we all have unique abilities, and in our own way, we can make a difference, even if it is a small one. And this is what I have been doing. When we first got the stay-at-home order, I tried to identify friends I have that do not have families or are not close to the ones that they do have. I have a small list of people that I have been calling on a regular basis so that they don't feel so alone and have someone to talk to. I also called a couple of extended family members that we don't communicate with very often. When I called my cousin, she said she was feeling depressed about the virus. We started talking and started recalling memories from the past, and we just started laughing and laughing. Before we hung up, my cousin thanked me for calling and said she needed it and felt much better. That made me feel good. I have also bought groceries for a friend on chemo and groceries for a couple that is sick. I've made a few silly videos for my grandkids and a few friends. My friend who is finishing up her chemo said she laughed so hard she cried. So again, it made me feel good. And lastly, since the correspondence team can't meet, I sent cards out from our church to some of our shut-ins. Thank you, Kathy Ginter. Thank you for finding ways to share your unique self during this time and letting that love and wisdom guide you. So this series is about our 12 powers, or as Phil Pearson calls them, our 12 freedoms. And so I'm using for this series a book that was written by Phil Pearson called The 12 Freedoms, in which he talks about these 12 powers in dyad. So last week we took a look at the unifying dyad of love and wisdom. And this week we're looking at the presencing dyad of of life and renunciation. So, life and renunciation. What I wanted to begin with this morning was a sharing. This is our multi-generational service, and so I'm excited. I'm sure there are children out there that are watching, and I'm thrilled to have you. And I wanted to share in our beginning today a story that Phil Pearson shares in his book on the 12 freedoms. And he shares about the story of the Babimba tribe of South Africa. Now, in the Babimba tribe of South Africa, what happens is if somebody steps out of line, what we might call an error in unity, what others might call a sin, when you do something that was wrong, however it came about. Well, most of the time, we find ourselves in society, in cultures, in our own personal lives, upset with that person and telling them what is wrong with them. But not in the Babimba tribe. In the Babimba tribe of South Africa, what happens is if somebody steps out of line and they do something that is out of integrity, something that is harmful, something that has hurt the tribe members, rather than accusing and judging and blaming, what they do is circle around the person. And what they do once they have circled around them is begin to remind the person of the good that they have done. Calling them to their highest, calling them to their best, calling them to remember the truth of who they are. In other words, remembering that you are good and very good. And so I begin with that story because this is one of the premises that Phil Pearson talks about in this book. This idea that, again, we're not born in original sin, but in original blessing, that we are born good and very good, and that we have these 12 faculties within us in which we can meet life from that place of good or very good. And so I'm inviting the children right now, if you're watching, to draw a picture. Draw a picture of what you would say to yourself or someone else that you love, that when they've forgotten or when you've forgotten that you are good or very good, what you would like to remind them. Draw a picture of that. Write a poem about that, a little story, whatever it looks like, and take some time to do that, perhaps as you're listening to the rest of this message. You are good and very good. And you have these presence dyad powers of life and renunciation within you to help you to meet that place of good and very good. So what do these powers have to tell us? In this book, Phil Pearson tells us the life faculty could well be called the faculty of awareness. It is our mind's ability to be aware of ideas, to give presence to them in consciousness. We can be aware of the myriad of ideas that life experiences and associations present to us. In this awareness, then, we have the ability to ignore them or give them life or presence in our consciousness. And finally, it is not the job of this faculty of life to process to completion or rejection the idea it births and accepts into consciousness. The life faculty functions solely to create a presence of all possibility for what is or can be happening within our life. So the faculty of life is about ideas. It's about the abundance of possibility, the infinite possibility of ideas that are always present for us in divine mind consciousness. As I said last week, this book is about our connection with divine mind. We are one with that divine mind, and it is in our mind that we experience these faculties. So the faculty of life is that all of those ideas that come into our mind, and which ones do we give attention to and presence to, and which ones don't we? So going back to our example of that Bamiba tribe, what happens is we can begin to presence and give our focus to the ideas of what's wrong with someone, how they failed us or ourselves, what's wrong with us, how we're failing ourselves. And when we do so, we give life to those ideas in consciousness, and then the ideas in consciousness begin to become the experience of our life. Our brain just goes to work and finds all of the many ways that we are failing, that we are not enough, that, we are separate from, that there's not enough of things. All of those ideas that we have now given presence to in our mind begin to show up through the experience of our life. So we have a choice. What do we want to presence? The Babimba tribe of South Africa have decided to give presence to give life to the truth of our goodness and our very goodness, to give life and to give presence to the ways in which they are showing up as the very life and light that they are. And so this is what the quality and the faculty of life is about. What am I giving energy to? What am I giving focus to? What am I giving attention to? Not out here in the world, but in my mind, where, as our third principle reminds us, all that is happening out here begins in that place in our mind. So the faculty of life isn't about the life that we necessarily see out there. That's the effect. It's the cause. What am I giving life to in the presence of my mind? So I'm going to invite all of us to think about this particular time as we move through this unprecedented experience of a worldwide pandemic in which we are still meeting virtually, in which we are still physically distancing ourselves, in which we are still finding our ways through with a lot of mystery and a lot of unsurety and, yes, a lot of confusion that's out there. What am I giving presence to during this time? So I want to go back to Kathy's example first, in which she shared how she is practicing these ideas of love and wisdom and showing up and being the light. And then she began that email. She realized that She doesn't have the ability to sew masks. She's not a sewer. We see so many examples that this is what people are doing, sewing masks. So many people within our own community are doing this, and it's fabulous. But what do you do if you don't have the ability to sew? What ideas do you give presence to in your mind then? So Kathy maybe did for a moment and could have for an extended period of time gone into, you see, I can't do this. I'm no help here. I don't know how to sew. What can I do? There's nothing, and that idea could have begun being presenced in her mind, but she caught herself. And when she caught herself, she changed her mind. And she realized that each and every one of us has something to contribute in any small way. And what we will do when we begin to experience these ideas is we'll begin to presence the idea that, well, that's just nothing. Like making a silly video for my grandchildren, what good does that going to do? And we can begin to presence our thoughts of not enoughness within those ideas. Oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to speak this word of uplift to that person because what will they think of me? We can begin to presence limitations in our mind, arguing for those limitations in our mind. We can then give life to those limitations in our mind. Or like Kathy, we can catch that and decide, no, there's something. I've got something unique to contribute here. So what is it? What is it for me? This is what I'm inviting us to think about this week. What am I presencing in my life? What am I giving life to? Now, each of these powers are a dyad. So life is accompanying with the faculty of renunciation, release, letting go. Life is the active dyad, part of the dyad. As I said last week, these dyads have two pieces, two components, two faculties. One is active, one is supportive. In this week's dyad, life is the active one. What am I giving life to? But then the second piece of it is that I have to ask myself, now what do I have to release in order to give life to that? What idea do I have to let go of in order to support what it is that I really want to give life to? So Kathy had to release the idea that there was nothing that she could contribute since she didn't sew masks, and she had to embrace the idea instead that as a unique divine creation of God, she has something to share. This is why these two ideas fit hand in hand. First, life. What do I want to give life to? And then renunciation. What do I need to release in order to give life to that? I'll share a personal example, being spiritual leader here of this community. If I take myself back to March 22nd, when I realized for the first time that we were going to be doing these services virtually, live streaming from my home, I will admit that the first thoughts that came up in my mind, the first thoughts that I began giving life to, that I began presencing within my mind, were thoughts of fear. Like, could I do this? What would this look like? What would happen to our community? Would there be enough? Would people continue to contribute? Would we make it through? Would we thrive? All of the fears began coming up. Fears that were centered, presenced in lack and limitation and not enoughness. So what did I have to release? Well, one of the things that I had to release was that I was doing it on my own. So I let go of that idea. I'm not in this alone. I have an entire community here that loves Unity Spiritual Center Westlake. So I can let go of the idea, release that idea that it's all up to me. I could let go of the idea that people wouldn't support Unity Spiritual Center if we weren't coming together in a building. It was time to release that idea to the higher vision, presence the idea, no, God is our source. And so God as source is going to provide an abundance of ways for us to thrive as a community during this time. I'm one with that divine mind consciousness. So let me open my mind to the ideas that come. And that is what happened as I released and let go of the fears, the worries, the concerns, the doubts. Then what came up and what was given life were the myriad of opportunities that we have that continue to happen of how we can connect, how we can thrive, how we can show up for one another. And so I am so excited about that idea of what do I want to give life to, and then what do I have to release in order to experience that life. What is it that you are wanting to give presence to during this time? What is it that you have been focused on during this time? I think about this idea that we are all physically distanced. And of course, I'm really grateful that I'm here with my family, with my husband. I am not alone, but I'm sure that there are some of you out there watching this live stream that are alone. And what you might find yourself presencing, giving life to, is that idea of loneliness. I'm alone. There's nobody here. I'm not connected to anybody. You can stay in that place. Or you can ask yourself the question, what do I need to let go of so that I can move to a different life presencing idea? So you can connect. How can you connect? Well, you can connect by making a phone call like Kathy did to loved ones and family members that you haven't spoken to for a while. You can reach out and connect with people that you don't typically talk to. Perhaps there's a friend that you haven't spoke to in years. Perhaps there's a loved one that you've had a disagreement with and you haven't spoken to them in years. What would you have to release and let go of in order to give presence to the life-giving energy of connecting to someone again, right? This is what we're invited to think about. And listen, if you in your life can't think of anyone to make a phone call to, let me know. Send me an email. I'll connect you with someone. We have a whole community of people that we can connect with and have conversations with. And what might you have to let go of, release, in order to make that phone call? Well, you might have to let go of the idea of, I'm afraid to reach out to somebody I don't know. If I don't know this person, what will I say to them? If I don't know this person, what will we ever talk about? All of the ideas that keep us in this place of, I'm lonely, I need somebody to connect to, I am living here alone, I have nobody to connect to. See, we can give presence, we can give life to a different idea. I am here to share my light, to share my understanding, to share my life, and I can do that this time with a simple phone call. And I can let go of my fear of calling someone I don't know. I can let go of my fear of calling somebody that I have not forgiven. I can let go of my fear of calling someone that has hurt me. I can let go of those fears. I can release so that I can presence and give life to something different, something new, something grand. What do you want to give life to during this time? I'm imagining that some of you, like me, have been busy working. I hear people with a lot of time on their hands. I don't have that issue. I have been busier than ever. And you, like me, may be working from home. And you may find yourself giving presence, giving life to the idea of, wow, I wish I could just relax and do nothing for a while. But of course, if that idea took root, it might lead to an effect that you didn't really want, because I know that you are happy for that job. So how else can I presence this idea? Perhaps I need to let go of the disappointment that I don't have any time off during this, and give life to the idea of gratitude. Yay, I've got a job. I'm working. I'm making it through this. Perhaps you've got the other situation. You're home and you're not working, and you've got real concerns about, how am I going to get through this time without an income? You can continue to give presence to these ideas that are fearful, that are filled with worry, that are filled with concern. You recognize and realize that as you do so, this is what you're giving life to. So what do I have to release and let go of in order to give life to something else? I can let go of the idea of the fear and the worry and the doubt, and I can become presence to the awareness that God is here in this moment, and that in divine mind consciousness, there is a perfect divine idea for my life during this time. What would it be? What would it be if I gave myself over to that and said, I have all this time now. What can I do with it? What will I give life to besides worrying, besides being in fear? What else can I give life to? And what do I have to release in order to do that? Life and renunciation, they go hand in hand. They are the dyad, the presence dyad. What do you and I want to give presence to during this time? This time, as I said, is like a magnifying lens. It's just really bringing up to such clarity those areas in our life that are out of alignment with the truth, those areas of our society that are out of alignment with justice. It is showing us what we have been presencing and what we have been giving life to in order to give us an opportunity to choose again. If you were to give life to something else today, what would that look like? How would you need to focus your thoughts in order to do so? The presence dyad invites you to release every idea that is out of alignment with what you really want and to be here now in this moment, focusing on that. Now, this presence dyad of life and renunciation, of course, don't work alone, right? We have to continue to take actions and do the things that we need to do. And as the weeks go on, you'll see how the different powers work together. Even though we're talking about them each week as though they're separate powers, they really aren't. They're all working together. That power of love and wisdom that is within you is helping you to discern what is it that I'm presencing now, and what is it that I want to presence, and what is it that I need to release and let go of in order to do that. They are working together. And as each week goes on, you'll see how each of these powers support all of the other powers in working in your life. So probably like me, you need an opportunity to practice this. And so your practice for this week is to take some time this week to meditate and contemplate on that presence dyad of life and renunciation. Consider what it is that you would like to give life to, and what is it that you would like to release in order to do so. And then to take a step each day to allow yourself to bring life to that which you are wanting to see, and to release that which is out of alignment with what you want to see. And then, as Kathy did, send me an email and let me know how that's working for you. The presence of life. As each one of us listens within to what that is for us and releases that which is out of alignment with that, we can create the kingdom of heaven here on earth. We can let our light shine. I'd love to hear how you are doing so this week.